Welcome to episode 1 of Neil Noticed, the podcast that explores Christianity, politics, and society, and hoping to do so with wisdom and respect. So, the first thing I wanted to start with tonight is kind of a doozy. So, there was recently a New York Post article that talked about or presented some interesting evidence about a potential shady at best relationship with Joe and Hunter Biden. And so I came up with 13 questions after reading through it, or what I'm calling 13 reasons why the Joe and Hunter Biden situation is fishy at best. So I wanted to go through a few of these just to kind of get the wheels turning. I think these are 13 questions that the campaign and Hunter Biden need to address to really kind of quell suspicion because it does look very, very fishy. I can't say I can prove any of this or prove necessarily what's happening, but there are certainly some dots that look fairly easy to connect. So, first, who is the my guy mentioned in the April 13th, 2014 email, and why would his words have such an impact? In the email, it talks about his words, this guy's words being impactful or carrying a lot of weight or something like that. And so, he's mentioning his guy. And it seems to me, if this person is going to be so influential, what does he have to be afraid of with being named? Why all the anonymity? I don't understand that. Second thing, who is the big guy? And this is kind of similar to the first one. Who is the big guy in the May 13th email? Was Hunter holding the money for him? What stopped him from receiving the money directly? And I misput the year on there. It wasn't 2020. I believe it was 2017. So it's a typo on my part. But who is the big guy? Was Hunter holding the money for him? And what stopped him from receiving the money directly? Again, if this is a big, powerful, influential person, what is stopping them from getting the money directly? And why all the anonymity? If this is above board, why not just say the guy's name? It doesn't make sense to me. Number 3, why did Hunter Biden and Archer buy, and this is in quotations, this is quoted in one of the emails, why did they buy a cell phone or plan to buy a cell phone from a 7-Eleven or CVS tomorrow, and I'll do the same. Basically, they're communicating between one another saying, hey, let's go buy these phones, presumably burners, which I think is the only reason you would really buy those these days. Why did they need burner phones? Why did they have to use burner phones? Were they afraid that their phones were currently being monitored? What's the story there? And forgive me if I mispronounce the name, but when did Mr. Pozharskyi meet with Joe Biden and what was discussed? And I know that in the email, a lot of people try to say, well, there was a desire to meet or something like that. But in the email, Mr. Pozharskyi uses spent, as in past tense, as in it happened. So presumably the meeting did happen. What was discussed between Joe Biden and Mr. Pozharskyi during that meeting when they spoke? Number 5, what authority did Joe Biden have to request the firing of Viktor Shokin? Why did he have to be fired? What was wrong with him? And what authority did Joe Biden have in that? Why, if the Ukrainian vice president, or whatever the equivalent would be, came to America and said, hey, you need to fire Bill Barr. Why would we accept that? Why would we be okay with that? That doesn't make sense. So, number 6, what had Mr. Shokin done to require a termination instead of a meeting or a correction or intervention? So, if Mr. Shokin had done something wrong, why not speak to him about it? Why not talk with him about it? Why not kind of go through more of what would seem to be a natural process of, hey, something's going on, something we don't approve of, something we don't like, let's discuss this, instead of immediately a termination. Normally, if an employer has a problem with an employee, or someone in authority has a problem with an employee, they would go speak to them and talk to them and go through that process before an immediate termination. So if it was an immediate termination, it should have been something that was really heinous and, well documented. Number 7, what precedent is there to require the termination of a foreign government official in order for said country to receive foreign aid. What precedent sets that up? Why, what past activities, what past things have happened for us to go, yeah, this is a legitimate action for that to happen? Number 8, what documents dated prior to the firing of Shoken would indicate that corruption concerns were shared by the United States and members of the EU? So they were talking about suspicion of Shoken being, corrupt or something like that. Like, okay, if that's the case, provide documentation that there was suspicion of him being, involved in some sort of heinous activity. Show us that. Do the Germans have something? Do other members of the EU have something? What do we have that would back this claim up? Number 9, what kind of influence did Hunter and Devon have that would potentially sway the Ministry of Internal Affairs, since, according to Hunter's lawyer, at no time was Hunter in charge of the company's legal affairs? So Hunter didn't have any authority or any say over the legal affairs of the company. So what kind of influence did they have? If they were members of the board, presumably, but it doesn't seem like there was a whole lot of reason for Hunter to be involved in it. He did graduate from law school, but aside from that, he had a fairly checkered past, to say the least. So what authority did he have? What kind of an influence did he have, besides the influence of his father? Number 10, what kind of introductions were worth $10 million a year for Mr. Yi? So now we're switching more over to the China story, and I'm providing the links to the 2 New York Post stories in the link below. What kind of introductions were worth $10 million a year for Mr. Yi? Who would pay... Okay, let me rephrase that. Who was worth $10 million to meet? Think about that for a second. You're willing to pay $10 million to meet with somebody. That better be a really, really important, influential person. So whoever Mr. Yi wanted to meet, this was somebody very big to pay $10 million for that kind of an introduction. Who is the him that will own the other 50% of this company that they were setting up? So all throughout these documents, there's a lot of he's, hims, big guy, my guy. There's a whole lot of pronouns being used, but not proper names. So this is somebody, at the very least, who would not want to be named in these documents. So if it wasn't Joe Biden, Hunter, then who? And, he doesn't have to answer that. He's not required to answer that. But if he's not going to come up with an alternative, it certainly makes his father look a little fishy. At the very least. Number 12, in the August 1st, 2007 photo that has a handwritten flowchart, and again, you can find this photo in the links that I'm going to provide. Who is the person represented by name? There's just the word name written in the box on this flowchart. Again, another very vague reference to some individual presumably not wanting to be named or associated with this for some sort of reason. If this is a legitimate business deal happening, if it was Bill Gates for some reason, let's say, why wouldn't you just write Bill in there? If it's above board, who cares? So again, another indication that this is something shady and with somebody probably fairly well known, with influence certainly. And number 13, there's been a lot of talk about, this is, doctored Russian counterintelligence or whatever. It's not authentic. I'm like, okay, if you believe that, what evidence can you provide that demonstrates that the emails, photos, or any other intelligence aren't authentic? Would there be some sort of alibi, let's say, for why Hunter couldn't have sent those emails in 2014 or 2017? Or why it couldn't have been Joe Biden involved in this, aside from the fact that it would look bad or be illegal? I mean, we're kind of begging the question at that point. And then finally, I have one other question, not for Joe or Hunter Biden, but for the FBI. They received this laptop months ago, if not, in fact, maybe even over a year ago. Who at the FBI looked into the contents of the laptop? And who made the decision not to look further into the situation And what was the rationale for that decision? Who at the FBI saw that, understood what it was, and then went, yeah, we don't need to do anything with this? That to me is, even beyond maybe the Joe and Hunter Biden thing, that is more disturbing to me probably than any other aspect of this. The FBI had at the very least reasonable suspicion to carry on a thorough investigation. And somebody somewhere decided to go, no. So, I'm open to being wrong in these things. I'm doing this podcast, but I'm no means an expert, in these kind of things. But if I'm wrong, let me know why. Why? Do you disagree with me? Do you agree with me? If so, why do you agree or disagree with me? Where's my logic falling apart? And I hope I presented this with wisdom and respect. And I hope that you would give me the same respect in return in your comments. If you like this, please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, see you later. I'll figure out some sort of ending line. Bye.